Previously on the vocal minority.
Are you part of the silent majority? Or are you part of the vocal minority?
Motherfuckers, go. Attention, please.
If America can be saved, and I don't know if it's too late, but it'll be through radio shows like this new kind.
This shit here feels like a whole entire world collapse.
The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers.
It's the vocal minority.
The revolution will be live.
Welcome to another episode of Vocal Minority Report. It's your boy MC. Got a great show for you today. Our guest today is one half of a podcasting duo that keeps the laughs coming and the realness real. His show has been featured in the Huffington Post, Ebony Magazine, and LA Times, to name a few outlets. If that wasn't enough, the man's got a blue check next to his name, so you know he's verified. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the black guy who tips, Mr. Rob Morrow, to the show. Did I get your last name right? Is it Morrow?
Yeah, it's Rob. It's Rob Morrow, like tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you for having me on, MC.
Hey, no problem, man. I appreciate it. Usually I ask how it's going for you tonight, but let me first say, man, happy anniversary to you and your lovely wife. Got to ask the obvious question. You know, is your anniversary today?
Yeah, today's our anniversary. 14 years being married today.
Okay, yeah. So I got to ask, why are you up talking to me when you should be taking out your wife, right? It's a Friday night. You talking to me on your anniversary. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we really don't do big anniversary stuff. What we did was we made our podcast annual day the same day as our anniversary. So people wear their podcast gear, they take their cups to work, they take pictures, they put it online, and share the show with people. And as far as, today, I think we went out to our favorite restaurant, Cowfish, and had, late lunch and, just hung out for a little bit, and then that was it, man. We're not huge on celebrating that.
Oh no, that's cool. Good. Yeah, that's cool. If you'd rather talk to me than hang out with your wife, that's cool. Y'all spend a lot of time together, so no, I get it. I'm just, but no, that's good though. You get to celebrate it with her and your audience. So no, that's nice. That's a nice way to do it for sure. So shoot, we can go ahead and jump right into you and who you are and your show. So, for those that don't know, what can you tell us about the Black Guy Who Tips and the podcast that you put out?
Well, the Black Guy Who Tips is a comedy podcast. We've been doing it about 5 or 6 years. The motto of the show is nothing's wrong, it's funny. And I would say that it's, a pop culture meets news meets politics and just a good old fashioned conversation around the lunch table type of atmosphere. And you can find it at theblackguywhotips.com or iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search The Black Guy Who Tips, will come up. And we appreciate everybody takes the time out to listen.
We don't want to sell the show, or I don't want to sell the show short but this is a full-fledged 5-day a week. Actually, it's more than that, right? Because you guys some premium episodes. You guys really have a full business, don't you, going with your show, right?
Oh yeah, we have the regular show, which we do 5 days a week, and then we have some spin-off shows that we do various times. We do movie reviews, do a sports podcast called Balls Deep. We do nerd podcast about nerd culture and geek stuff about every 2 weeks called The Nerd Off, and other shows as well. And then we have them all behind the paywall that, our premium people pay to listen to. And we, that's how I make my income at this point.
That's very interesting and I think that idea is what a lot of podcasters who listen to this show and that's the mindset they have, to be able to become truly independent and derive their income from the shows, especially your model with the whole freemium. I don't know if you call it that or not, but I've heard that term before, freemium, and I like that because you've got the free content out there, and then you've got the paywall and the premium subscribers. So, how long have you had that model and system up behind the paywall?
I believe this will be our third year. This fiscal year is our third year that we've been doing it. So I lost my job. I was laid off for the second time that we've had the podcast. I was laid off, which is you know, I just couldn't even imagine.
Right.
But, you know, the second time my wife just said, look, before you look for a job, before you try to go back to work or anything like that, see if we can monetize this show. And then, at the bare minimum, we can always say we tried. And, it's been way more successful than I thought it would be. And, that's all because, my wife and, Karen and the motivation and the, belief she had in the show.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So do you also derive income from sponsorships, the free on the standard show?
Yeah, we also have sponsors, which I wish I had a better formula for telling people how to get sponsors. I really don't. You know, there's a lot of trial and error. We email people. But for the most part, our sponsors have reached out to us, whether they see us, on podcast list or, word of mouth, which, we have a very active, interactive fan base. And I think a lot of people reach out to us because we, you know, we're also very professional. And, wait, can I cuss on this show? I don't know. I didn't ask.
Hell yeah, hell fucking yeah. Do your thing.
Yeah, we sell the shit out of stuff, man. Like you know, a lot of podcasters I hear when they, you know, try to sell something, it's like, oh guys, I hate to do this. And, you know, it's very reluctant. And we're like, you know, look, this is not how you would hear if you saw a TV commercial that was like, hey guys, you want to try Viagra maybe? Like nobody would get it. So you have to be very positive and assertive. So, you know, we've managed to get, Loot Crate, Adam and Eve, Bevel, Shadow Dog Productions was our original sponsor that has stuck with us through the years. Like we've managed to accumulate quite a good amount of sponsors, over the years. Also, Tweaked Audio and stuff like that.
It's evident, you know, that you guys grind hard. Well, you put out good content, stuff that's engaging for the audience that listens, and you hustle hard. So no, I was listening to, I've mentioned this before on the show, but Ira Glass was doing This American Life was doing an interview, and he was talking about his show, but their big pitch to public radio and getting the show on was their pledge drive and how they knew how to get the money. You know, it wasn't about the show. You know, they knew they did good work, but the hustle was, hey, you know, we will drive listeners. They will pledge. That was how he sold and got the show on all the networks initially. And that's always stuck with me, you know, just that grind. It's not the same parallels as to what you're talking about, but as far as being confident and asking for it and knowing that, you know, hey, we've got this product, we've got that content out there. So it's good to hear you say that, especially because there is no magic formula for getting sponsors or getting that notice. So I like the idea of just grind and go get it, right?
Yeah, unless you like know somebody or you work as part of some sort of network that already has established ties, it's very difficult to get podcast sponsorship without like a huge listener base. And even within, you know, a lot of this stuff is kind of the wild, wild west. You know, different people have different payment models. And the thing I always advise people, do what you're comfortable with. Like, don't try to imitate somebody else. Find the level that you're comfortable, and then remember that having one sponsor is how you get two, because people here, they don't associate your show or most shows with the idea that you could sell something until they see you doing it. And then that's what gives the next sponsor the idea that, hey, we should try these guys as well.
That's a very good point. So back to your show specifically and working with, you mentioned your wife, Karen. I've got to ask you, and it's probably cliche, and you probably get asked this when you're on somebody else's show, but how is it being around your wife all day? And that sounds bad. I know she's a lovely person, but as far as, you know, the actual, you know, the joke is like the morning show couple that, you know, they get up early in the morning, they go do the morning show, and then they got to spend all that time with your wife and the conversation. I'm just curious how that works for you guys. I know you guys have known each other for a long time, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been together since we were 16. We've known each other since like, I don't know, 3rd or 4th grade probably. So,
okay. Oh, okay. So you go way back. That's like your best friend for real. Okay.
Right. And that's really the secret, I guess, is, she's my best friend. So it's not a burden or a task to be around her. I think a lot of people think of romantic love in the sense that, and I guess any person really, but when you kind of come together after you've had and established yourself and your own stuff and your own identity, I think it's a little more difficult to be around somebody a whole lot. I think people get infatuated and they spend a lot of time together, and then eventually you kind of, that fades away, and then it's kind of like, another person living here.
Right. It's like, like damn, you still here? Move your feet. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think we've been very fortunate that over these years we've been able to grow together, and and then I think we have some pretty good temperaments for a relationship. We're both pretty patient people, we're both pretty kind people, and I think that's really what matters. And I think when people hear our show, that's what they hear on the microphones, because 1,200 and something episodes in, and all the premium episodes, if we were faking it, it would have came out by now. So
no doubt. Yeah, man, that's 1,200. I was talking to a buddy of mine, Walt, over at the Black Neighbors podcast, and he was, I think 1,275 or something when we were talking about your show, and I was like, man, that's a grind. And so, do you think that having the show for this amount of time, these amount of years now, I guess a third of your marriage has, or maybe more, whatever, has strengthened your connection and how you communicate with your wife? And you mentioned the temperaments and the foundation that you guys had already, but I wonder if having these conversations and having them on the record, if you will, and just having that additional dialogue that other couples may not get, do you think that has played any role, or can you speak to that?
I think it helps, because you just find things out through talking like everybody else does, but it's a mandated time that we're going to be talking to each other,
but y'all get paid to do it.
Right. But and by mandated, I don't mean, we're reprimanded or punishment, but literally, we know that every week, at least 5 times, we'll be sitting down for an hour or so discussing things. And I wouldn't hesitate to say that most couples can benefit from that, and most couples probably don't do that. And that, just as in their free time, and just because, and the thing is, I look forward to it. I want to talk to her. I want to share these stories and get her opinion on things. For me personally, I feel like it's strengthened the relationship, because there's certain things that you don't know or you can't find out until you're talking about them. And since the topics are kind of random and the stories are random and the news is random, you just never know when, somebody's going to hear something that's going to trigger that memory or make them think of something or come up with an opinion that you just had never heard from people and from that person before. And we've had that happen before on the air.
No, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty amazing that we've gotten to this point where the medium has changed enough that you can have that and be able to share that. Because I wonder, I bet that's kind of enriching for the audience too, to be able to hear a Black couple have dialogue and discourse daily, and work together. So I don't want to overstate it, but I don't know if do you ever think about that aspect of it too, from that standpoint of how rare and unique you all are? And I know there's other couples out there that do shows, but as far as you guys, do you ever think about your role just in the podcast sphere or in the independent media or just media sphere as far as what you all represent?
Yes and no. Obviously it's just our relationship, and it would exist whether we had a show or not. It would exist.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? So on the one hand, not that I take it for granted, but I don't think about it because it's not like I'm not doing actions within my relationship as a representation for all of Blackness. That being said, there's no way to separate the people that enjoy our show just because it is what they would consider a positive reflection of a Black relationship that doesn't fall into the typical, man versus woman type gender role type thing where
right
we're always arguing like a sitcom or something, the things that we just grow up with, and we don't question, you know, how every rom-com has the guy messes up really bad and then the woman does something extremely irrational and then he runs after her train before she can leave and they get together at the end. Like, we don't have that kind of drama necessarily, but we just don't have that drama in general. I guess the funny part to me is when people are getting acclimated to our show and it's almost like they think we're pulling some type of magic trick where, you know, we don't, like, secretly we're not getting along, and then we get on the mics and we make it work, and then we hang up the mics and then we're not getting along again.
Right. You go to your separate wings of the house and don't talk until the next recording, right? So yeah, it's, you know, it's just but you know, I can't help what it represents to people, and if people think we're a positive reflection of healthy black love, then I'm happy to be that, but that's not my goal. Well, let me ask you then. So what is your goal? Well, what was your goal initially, and then how has that goal changed now with success, with notoriety, with a larger audience size? Let's talk about the kind of the changing, or has the goal changed? And what was your goal initially? Did you have one initially?
The goal is the same as the very first episode, and that is to have fun. Like,
okay, all right, that's good.
The motto of the show is nothing's wrong if it's funny, and we legitimately mean that. I think over the years the show has gravitated and branched out into a more liberal and a more political show, but I think that is I think most people gravitate towards that if they're any level of serious and aware person. It's very difficult to not do it. Like, you know, there are some shows that like just keep it like pure, you know, what if unicorns could drive cars type, you know what I'm saying? There's some shows like that where
right,
their goal is to be silly and never be grounded in reality, but that's not been the purpose of our show. And I think we've learned from ourselves, from our audience, and just from our ability to have confidence in ourselves, we've learned that we can make things funny that aren't funny. You know, we can we can find the humor and the angles on things that might not get presented elsewhere. And we've kind of drifted into a space where I would say the show is as it can be as deep and empathetic and thoughtful as, you know, as any show, and at the same time we can turn around and be as silly and funny as any show, and we can also be as offensive as some shows. Like the show just kind of morphed into, like I said, a very funny show, but a very aware show, because we're constantly absorbing media and following stories and talking about things that most people seem to not want to talk about in polite company or are scared to talk about.
And the weird thing about that is that, like, the kind of duality that you mentioned, well, actually, I guess it's more than duality because you had three things, but being able to kind of toggle back and forth, it's kind of more what we do in our regular lives anyway. You know, some things are funny, some things are, you know, I'm always looking for the absurdity to try to make some joke or have some levity, you know, or to try to do that. And it always exists. So we kind of go through those ebbs and flows. I like how it's kind of consciously, unconsciously capturing that. So, but speaking of that, you know, you talk about always being up on, I know you're always on social media and you're seeing what's out there in the media and what's being reported, and you're sharing and commenting on that. It's kind of serendipitous that we're going to talk to you today because, you know, you being the black guy who tips and all, with the story about, you know, a very famous black person and the subject of tipping that I saw this morning, you know, the baddest woman on the planet, Miss Serena Williams, and her crew are accused of walking out, not tipping or thanking on a comp $400 meal at a steakhouse in East Harlem. So I thought, you know, hey, let's talk about this because I had some thoughts on it, and it gets into a few different things, you know, as far as race and social norms. I guess first, let me get your general thoughts on the story when you heard it or read it. What was your initial reaction?
I guess my first reaction was just, I wonder if there's something missing from the story,
Right.
That's about it. Cause if she was notorious for not tipping, I feel like this would have hit the fan way before she turned 34.
No doubt. Right. Yeah. She's been paid for a long time. Right.
Yeah, also the idea that they comped a meal and she didn't thank them also sounds like maybe somebody fucked up, which is another reason people don't tip. And the sources on it were very it didn't seem to be from a person. It was just kind of like random, like, hey, she didn't leave a tip, y'all, and they wrote a whole article about it.
Right.
So when you read the article, it's literally like they got one sentence from somebody and was just like, yeah, that's enough to write an article. And the restaurant said they couldn't confirm or deny the incident. But I'll tell you this, if something happened, they definitely don't want to be messing with the wrong one, because she can just put all their business out there if it's that. And let's just go to the other extreme. If she really just rudely got comped a $400 meal, didn't say thank you, and didn't tip anybody, then I'm sure she'll deserve and get any of the scrutiny that is out there. But as of right now, this seems kind of fishy.
It does. A lot of it seems fishy from the perspective of, number one, if there's like 7 people in your entourage and you're at this nice Ricardo Steakhouse, that Jay-Z and Lala and Mello and all these people go to, $400 seems really cheap for 7 people. And that's so that I'm like, they must have not had any alcohol at all, or had a lot of apps or something, because it's like the dollar amount's weird. Everything's just kind of, and you would figure, like, again, she would have the social graces and all this time. Surely it's not the first time she's got her meal comped. It probably happens to her all the time. So, she should know how to handle it. But it's not even a big deal. It's just one of those things where, I guess, obviously because of the U.S. Open, that it's out there. And I just thought it was, since we were having you on, that we should talk about it, because it brings up, because I just had the discussion the other day when I went to a restaurant about my 15% was not enough. I should be leaving 20. And I was like, yeah, I think my 15% is okay. I think we're brainwashed into that everyone, must tip 15%. But anyway, so I got to ask you about your name, obviously. I don't know if there's a level of irony there for the kind of title you chose. But so let's talk about the Black Guy Who Tips and how you came up with that moniker.
Well, it first started out as a blog that I started on MySpace. And on MySpace, you just could blog. It was like the first social media platform where you could just, at least for me, where I could just have a blog besides all the other stuff. And I used to write, funny things like, here's 10 things about future movies that I hate or whatever, And then eventually I migrated that to like a blog spot, and I had to pick a name. And because of the stereotype that Black people don't tip, which I hate, I was a waiter for so long that, I just hate that stereotype, man. I hate that we don't get served the same as other people. I feel like in a society where we know there's racism, it's the one disconnect that so many people that just become irrational about. They don't understand the internalized racism of just even how it affects everything. So I was like, I'm tired of people saying Black people don't tip, so you can say I'm one. Like, if you, like, I know I'm not the only one, but when you say Black people don't tip, remember I do. So fuck you,
Right, no doubt, right.
And that's how it started with the name. And then once we were going to start a podcast, Karen was kind of non-committal, because she was like, I don't know if people want to hear me. I don't know if I'm going to be funny or I'm going to be good. And I was like, I can't imagine there's any way you're not great at this. But what I'll do is we'll name it The Black Guy Who Tips. So if you feel like you're not going to be a part of this at some point, or you think we should rotate out host or something, or it's not fun for you, because number one, the goal has to be fun, If any of that happens, then your name's not on it and you don't have to feel bad or like you failed or anything. But obviously
what a gentleman. All right, go ahead. All right, I got you. Yeah. 1200.
Yeah. Honestly, man, if there's one regret I have about this show is I wish I could go back in the past and name it like the Rod and Karen show or something like that, or, something that more symbolizes both of us.
Right.
Because I think people now, in all fairness, the name's a great litmus test for unhumorous motherfuckers that, it's like I can't even get past the title. Well, you probably wouldn't like our show.
No doubt.
But a lot of people assume some really messed up stuff. But in general, if that was one thing I could change, I'd do something so that we both have an investment in this, even if it was just like a black couple that tips or something, just so that we, both can be represented.
No, I hear you. Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I'm glad that's an interesting way of explaining that. Okay, so I didn't know you were a waiter. So let me ask you, are you familiar with the term Canadians? Do you know who Canadians are?
Of course, man. I've been a waiter. I was a waiter for a long time.
Okay, well, see, because I don't know how much of the audience is aware, because I wasn't aware of that term. It's been about 6 or 7 years ago. I think there was an article written somewhere that first brought it to light for me. So tell the audience, let's talk about Canadians and tell the audience who a Canadian is or what a Canadian is.
Yeah, Canadian is just a racist way of referring to black people when they get when they are customers at a restaurant.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. That's it. Yeah. Right. So I didn't, I don't know how many people, and the audience may shock me, but I don't know how many people are aware of that, but I certainly was not aware of that there was an actual, I knew that we were certainly slotted, but I didn't know there was a term, you know what I mean? That's industry wide. You think probably everywhere that term is used, probably?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'll tell you this, when I first heard it, it was just, the first thing that just made me think was, one, wow, I can't believe y'all are doing this. Two, but also just kind of this moment where you're like, man, the depth of racism in this country is much deeper than even I as a black person thought initially. Like, y'all have other words for us just in case one of us is listening, because there's no reason to say that.
Of course.
Unless there's a black person that knows that you're being racist, it's a messed up industry. Anyone who's worked in that industry, I think, has a completely different understanding of people and what it's like how it's like to be deal with the customer and the public and stuff than most other jobs. Yeah,
because you get to see the and actually I guess my only experience, I was assistant manager of a sandwich chain place for about 6 months, so that's the only real restaurant experience I have. But you get to see people kind of at their finest, or at their worst, I should say, when they're hangry and real, feeling themselves. So yeah, I'm sure it kind of goes both ways. But the irony there of the whole Canadian term and racism when we talk about restaurants and even obviously the name of your show and you, is that research shows, and I don't know from your personal experience if you would say this to be true, that but African Americans or black people, black servers earn smaller tips than white servers. So there's an argument to be made that the practice of tipping in general is discriminatory. Excuse me. And that gets me to another point, but I wanted to just kind of throw that out there and kind of talk about that too. Just that the idea that how just messed up it is, that because the black servers aren't getting the same tips, and the white staff is slotting the black employees. It seems like a really bad system all the way around for black folks in the restaurant game, on both sides.
Yeah, it seems black people don't tip and black people can't wait, right? We can't serve, so
yeah, it can't get tips or get smaller tips.
Exactly. So apparently there's no racial bias that affects this at all. We're just, there's just us. We're just inferior people. What a coincidence, right? So,
right. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I've known. I mean, it's funny our show's named the Blackout Tips, but I'm anti-tipping. I think we should do away with tipping. We should add a couple extra dollars to the meal and to the food prices and pay wait staff hourly or salary wages rather than the draconian way that we do it now that allows people to lord over others and allows restaurants to shirk all responsibility to their employees.
I agree, and I was mentioning that the Freakonomics episode earlier, and it was they're economists on there, obviously, and part of the point of the part of the premise of the episode was that why pay extra when it's not required? Why do we even tip anyway? Like I was saying, a lot of us are have been brainwashed and confused when it comes to tipping, and it's just really this whole like separate thing we're talking about, when it comes to race and social norms, because I'm like, it's such a flawed system that's over. And I don't know that folks fully appreciate that, but it's messed up though, because it still creates this kind of internal pressure for Black people to, or at least for me, or it has over the years. And I know I've turned into encouraging my parents to tip better and back in the day being embarrassed about them not tipping or not tipping well. The point of that though is that, I feel like it gets to the larger conversation of having to hold it down and overcompensate for the whole race's lack of tipping, right? Or at least that perception, right? So, and that burden, of representation, I don't know if that's the right thing to call it, but I wonder how you feel about that, where, we've got to sometimes we put that on ourselves, we've got to shine brighter or make sure that, hey, these white people in this establishment know that, no, hey, I'm not like these other niggas you might have slotted. So
nah, I mean, all representation of that nature is bad in my opinion. And like I said, I'll say this as someone who's infected with that. I definitely overtip. I'm definitely I'm naturally more patient and courteous than most people, but in general, I'm part of it is racial representation thing. I think that's how it started. But I'd say 95% of that is now at this point is just about me having been a waiter. Like I'll probably always overtip for the rest of my life because I know what the work is on the other side. But yeah, I think it sucks that we feel that burden because we can't beat racism that way. And honestly, I'm glad if the thing is people are getting overtipped, then I'm happy that it's happening. If the thing is we think overtipping is going to solve racism or make these people realize that we're human and they don't need to treat us this way and that their racist assumptions about us are wrong, it'll never change because racism is irrational.
Correct. No, that's a good point. Yeah, racism is irrational. That's a really good point. We over tipping is not going to it's not going to solve that for sure. So especially with this week when it comes to talking about that though, you got Kaepernick. Well, it's not just this week, but it's more in the news. Kaepernick taking a stand. A seat. I need a rim shot for that, but taking a seat, and then then you got Jerry Rice, and then you have Rodney Harrison. And then we had Cam Newton. A few weeks ago, especially when we have all these varied. I hate when Black people start arguing with Black people over what another Black person said, because I feel like we all get distracted about what's really going on here. When now we're and everyone's rushing to make a statement, be it controversial or whatever. So what about that? When we're talking about that burden of representation, but when it comes to, obviously everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but how do you feel like, if we're talking about, this Kaepernick because now people have forgotten about Cam Newton and his post-racial world that he lives in, right? So there, with these athletes and being outspoken and that level of representation, and then how the media puts that and makes that the story, how everyone responds to that based on, what we receive. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have the ability to focus on more than one thing at a time. Things like this take over the news cycle, and I would say the main thing I've learned from this Kaepernick thing is it's given me a new perspective on, and I'm trying to figure a way to articulate it best, but just on conformity and how our society is structured around everyone buying into the same thing, and our own insecurities get triggered by the fact that one person would say no. And that mentality, whether it's being used for good or bad, is an interesting aspect of society to investigate, because the way I feel about Kaepernick's protest is like, I feel like it's inspiring. I think it's great and brave, and I appreciate it. But when the way I feel about Cam Newton's comments, I don't have the problem with them, and I don't see the controversy in it that everybody else kind of seems to see at this point. And I've kind of run through the comments in their context a couple times, and it's sad because he's like articulating a first grade kid's understanding of race, but that's probably the ultimate goal for most of us, unfortunately.
But I'm sorry, that's so fun. I don't know if you've ever seen his my daughter watches his show on Nickelodeon. I think it's on Nickelodeon. He's got a kids show. I'm sorry, man. It's cracking me up because when he communicates on the show, I'm like, man, this brother, I'm like, good thing he can throw that football. And I hate to do that to, you know what I'm saying? I hate to clown, black people, but damn, I'm just like, man, I'm glad he can throw that football and is a big dude, because he's charismatic as heck, but he's not the most, what is the right term? I don't even know I can't even think of a good term, a good way to say it. Like I watching that show is a struggle. Not that it's meant for me, but I'm like, man, these producers must be like, they must have to do a lot of takes with my man when they do the show. So anyway, it's just funny. It just makes me laugh because I to hear you say that his first grade understanding, because I think a lot of his understandings are somewhat elementary, and that's whatever. That's just, I'll leave it at that. But if you watch that show, then you watch my man work. I'm like, man, my man needs a little bit of help. So anyway, I digress. I just had to go down that road and talk about that show because it really tripped me out. But anyway, back to what you were saying. So yes, first grade understanding.
What's funny is if I didn't tell you Cam Newton said it, and I didn't tell you that it had anything to do with Colin Kaepernick, most people would just be like, yeah, I agree with that. It's silly that 1/8 of an inch, our skin makes us treat people totally different than each other. And, racism is stupid and it is messed up. And we should treat each other better. And his stance on Colin Kaepernick on his protest was, I can't tell him he's right. I can't tell him he's wrong. Like, I'm staying out of that. I just think racism is messed up. And it's like, because he wasn't in lockstep and because he didn't say it, in the best way possible. Cam does have some issues with words. Like, it just, people jump down his throat, I
wonder how much of that has to do with the OJ shadow right now. Because I feel like had he said those comments and we not be right in the shadow of two big, one documentary and then one mini series about OJ and all the talk, especially the documentary, the ESPN 30 for 30 on OJ's life, where the points about him not being black or not wanting to be represented. At least I felt like Cam's comments were highlighted in the negative light, in light in kind of that shadow. I don't know if you felt that or have an opinion on that either, but
I think really what messed him up, it's not even an OJ thing in my opinion. It's the comments he had the week before that came out through GQ that were like, I think we as a nation are beyond race or past that or something like that. We're talking about
those are ones I'm talking about.
I'm
talking about right.
Well, those are the comments that I think did him in a way, and I don't defend those comments, and I don't know what the fuck he was talking about. I don't know if he was just talking to somebody that he didn't trust ultimately, and he didn't want to have a racial discussion with them, or if he was just thinking to himself, I'm here to sell these big ass hats and capri pants. I don't want either way, that I think he got tripped up on that, or he's or more sinisterly, if you believe the worst of him, then he's made a conscientious decision to no longer speak about race and racism. And we'll see how that works out for him. But
yes, because that's the OJ parallel that I was trying to draw there. Yeah, with those comments, right?
Yeah, we'll definitely see. I'm not in a rush to judge here, but we'll see. One thing I'm trying to
wait, is that your quarterback?
Yeah, he's a Panther. Yeah, I'm a Panthers fan, but
okay, all right, yeah, okay, let's see.
But I swear to God, this has nothing to do with me being a Panthers fan. One thing I'm trying to do just in general is be a bit more empathetic and a bit more understanding of black people who
who say stupid shit.
Where they come from. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
because a lot of times we belittle each other for not having the same experience of blackness. And I think that's the wrong tactic to take, because we can't all have the same opinion. We can't tell everyone we're not a monolith and then expect monolithic behavior from each other.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to have, I'm working on it. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to have more respect for the fact that, sometimes people come to different racial conclusions or different experiences in their lives, and it just leads them down a different path than I've experienced. And if they mean well, and if they're not just speaking some straight up anti-blackness, then I'm cool with them, and I'm gonna try to leave it at that. We'll see what Cam. Jury's out. Some of the stuff he said, I just think flat out wrong. But a year ago he was saying no one's seen an African American quarterback like me, and that's why they scared. So I don't, I put that all in the same pot and just go, we'll see when these as he would put it, when his collard greens are done cooking.
Right. All right, I got you. No, shit, man, it might be a good place to end it. I don't have anything else for you.
Man, I've enjoyed this conversation, man. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Hey, no, I appreciate you coming on. Like, we should do it again for sure. You got so much stuff. There's so many things we can talk about with you. There's from TV shows to movies to whatever else is going on. So definitely want to have you back, but definitely wanted to get you on so folks could hear about what you and Karen have going on over at the Black Guy Who Tips. And now, do you call it a network, or what do you call your platform? How do you refer to it?
I guess I don't really refer to it as anything, but I guess it's
okay. All right. I got you.
Yeah. It's all us. So, I don't know. Just the Blackout Tips Premium is how we've been talking about it. But, I almost feel bad because, I feel like I haven't been as funny as I could be. I've been giving these really serious, thought-provoking answers, and then people gonna come to our show and be like, oh my god, these people are silly as hell. What is this? This is not the guy I thought he was at all on the Minority Report.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We'll see. Hey, like we talked about, man, it's that duality, right? You can sit up here and have one of these heavier conversations with me, and then you all can get on there and do your gay news and all the other and all the other fun and funny things you all do. So yeah, no, that's because I try to make the guests laugh and I don't think I made you laugh on this one, so I failed too. I failed too.
Hey, ironically, that made me laugh. Two, I don't know. I just, I've been working all day and stuff. It's kind of late, but I think also, I don't really laugh a lot unless I'm, like completely taken by surprise. Which is funny because, as many shows we've done together, my wife cracks me up, man. Like she still says shit that I'm just like, how does a brain think of that,
Right. That's good, man. Well, hey, that's why your show is funny and fresh and everything that it is. So yeah, no. So we'll have to. So it's a fault of me that I'll take the responsibility that this was not a funny conversation. So next time we'll have to get on here and we'll just be funny. We'll just do something. We'll keep it light. So I guess racism in restaurants and It's not the lightest of conversations, but we'll make it work. But cool, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a funny story that happened this week. So we can have something to laugh about, man. Did you hear about, McDonald's had to pull some fitness trackers from Happy Meals?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, now first of all, it's McDonald's Happy Meals and they had fitness trackers in them. Second of all, they gave kids rashes. So,
oh my gosh.
They had to take them, they had to take them out of the Happy Meals, which probably made them the third unhealthiest thing inside the box, you know?
No doubt. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. See, that's funny. Okay. All right. I got you. No, that's funny. Yes. Cause I was like fitness tracker and a Happy Meal. Like, okay, this must be, cause first it must be a cheap ass fitness tracker, number one, if it's in a Happy Meal. Let's be real.
Yeah. It must come with the instructions, run, you know, just
right.
Don't eat here. What are you doing?
Right. Yes. Stay away. Get the cone and get the hell out. No.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. Okay. Well, all right. You did it. We'll let the audience decide whether or not, the McDonald's story was funny enough to, we'll see if those, premium subscriptions go up. And then you'll know, right?
We'll see if we redeemed ourselves.
Right. Yeah, so you'll see. All right, man. Well, hey, Rod, really appreciate it. So how can folks, and we've said the name 1,000 times, but we can say 1,001. So how can they reach you on social media? And I know you're very active on social media. So how can folks get a hold of you if they once they listen to the show and want to holler at you? How can they get a hold of you?
It's probably easiest to find me on Twitter. Rodimus Prime is all one word. Just like the Transformer, Rodimus Prime. And, you can also follow our show Twitter, which is TBGWT. And, our website is theblackguywtips.com, or you can go to TBGWT.com. It takes you all to the same place. And, thank you for everybody out there. And my wife's Twitter is Say That Again. That is in DAT.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, man. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Word. And I will holler at you next time, man. We'll get it together.
Yes, sir. Peace.
All right, man. Peace.
He running the game and magnificent by this cash. Michael Watts, he made me hot. Hard work took me to the top. G-Dash took me to the lot. He wrote a check and bought a drop. I got the internet going nuts.
Hey, welcome back. As always, you could have downloaded any podcast in the world, but you're here with us. We appreciate that. I almost forgot to say that on this episode, but I got it in. Hope you all enjoyed the conversation with Rod. Make sure you check he and Karen out on The Black Guy Who Tips and all of their endeavors. Make sure you support them. Also support the Black Neighbors with Walden Egypt, my girls over at Cardigans in Conversation, Miles Weekly Finance, the Josh Show Podcast, Broke Black Bougie, To Kenya Talks. There's so many. The list goes on and on. Make sure you get with and support independent media, support Black podcasts. Check them out. I want to give a special thanks to the newest addition to the Vocal Minority Report family, my girl Deanne. She's our new special assistant, and she's been a really big help to the show. All right, that's it. This has been a Vocal Neighbors production. Oh yeah, thanks Walt for no sounder yet. We got to work on that. But anyway, we'll holler at you next episode. Peace.